My name is Rémy Dufour, and my connection goes back to 1915 when my grandparents homesteaded North Drumheller. I was living in East Coulee in the late 70s and 80s when the equipment came to this town to demolish this school. A bunch of us kind of looked at each other and said, do we really want to have this school demolished? Why don't we just try to save it? So we did form the Drumheller Valley Heritage Society, which put a stop to the equipment coming in here and tearing the building down. And then in years after that, we ended up by getting grants through the government and rebuilding the school to save it. And also the mine museum was exactly the same way. They had equipment over there to tear that one down. And as a Drumheller Valley Heritage Society, we were able to go over there and say, hey, you guys can't do that. We're going to try and save it. And then started getting grants for that also to rebuild the way it is now, and the way the school is now too is what we did. It had to get done. If it didn't get done, we wouldn't be sitting here. It was really important for us because we went to this school. The building structurally was safe to rebuild. We kind of got that. We got an inspector in, and he said, "Yeah, this building could be saved." And as kids, you know, the school was us, right? Everything was a school. We did everything here. Everything was done out of the school, you know. And it just came back in our minds that we just had to do something, and we did. As a student here, I guess it was important to come to school. At that time, I was the oldest of 11 kids, so there's a lot of kids went through here. And my parents moved to Calgary in '59, so most of the kids only would have went here for a couple of years, where I went for 9. Well, visitors, if they come into this school, are going to see what happened in the 50s, 60s, 40s, 30s. Right? This is the way things were then. And it's amazing. And most people are really not going to believe the way it was. You know, you can take a look here and everything looks peaceful and quiet, but there was a couple hundred kids in here running around and making a lot of noise and having fun. And, you know, I can remember running as fast as we could down the middle of this hallway here. My dad was the grain elevator operator from 48 to 59. Some of the other kids that I went to school with, their dads had stores, or the Sloan boys, they had the service station, and the Girlingers, they had a service station, and their dad ran heavy equipment and stuff like that. So it was a big variety, but most of it was coal mining because coal was king.
Coal was king at one time. It was, Drumheller Valley was just like Fort McMurray is with their oil sands. My name's Bob Moffat, and my first connection with East Coulee was back in about 1958 when I went to work at the Murray mine. I worked there until it closed in 1960, and then I left the valley for 33 years. I missed the valley all those years, and as soon as I retired, I came back to the valley and got connected 22 years ago with the Atlas, when we got the locomotive Linda running, and couldn't get rid of me, hung around here. I'm a 5th generation coal miner. My great-great-grandfather was a miner in Ireland, and eventually during the potato famine, my grandfather and his father came over to Cape Breton and worked there for a number of years, moving further west to Tabor and then finally to Drumheller, where most of my uncles worked in the mines. Both my grandfathers worked in the mines at one time, and we were just a family of miners. I started out as a bone picker up in the Tipple. Darn near froze to death up there, and I went underground. I drove ponies down there. Eventually I got pretty badly injured for a while, and I ended up being a timekeeper and payroll clerk for the Murray. After the coal boom, Atlas hung on. As the other mines dropped off, they ended up being the last mine in the valley. And when they closed down, the Patrick family donated the Atlas mine to the Historical Society. People come, they learn the history of mining. Some of us go a little further back with our stories than others, but they will hear how coal was king at one time and how it helped settle the province of Alberta. Railways running all over, using our coal and opening up homesteads for people. East Coulee School wouldn't be a school if it hadn't been for coal. That's what brought the people, and right now the school carries on history of mining. They have a huge section in there on miners' equipment and the way they lived. They've actually built miners' home inside that school, which I think everybody should have a look at because it's great. It's so authentic. I love the Drumheller Valley for a great number of reasons. Great memories of when I was a youth here. I love the valley's structure, the layers and layers of coal and rock and sandstone on the hills. It's beautiful. The other thing was we were always sports-minded in this valley, and it was our entertainment. No television in those days.
The reason that I love the Drumheller Valley is because I was born here. My grandparents homesteaded North Drumheller in 1915. And from that time, I can remember going to their house when I was tiny and going out and climbing Clay Peak, which is in Drumheller. Nobody knows that it's called Clay Peak, but it was Clay Peak to us. And ever since that time, we climbed the hills and we would go everywhere. We'd climb the hills. If I drive, even as an adult now, and I drive down the highway, I look into the hills and I see everything different. It's different every day. The lighting is different, the colors in the hills are different, and the animals are different that you're going to see every time you drive down the road. It's a beautiful valley, and it's always going to be beautiful for us.